in our Rotary meeting for today, February the 2nd. I guess this is Groundhog Day, but I haven't heard anything about it.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, today our invocation is going to be presented to us by John Leach. John?
Yeah. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes?
We can.
Okay, let's pray. Dear Lord, in these difficult times, may those of us who, through our Rotary membership, have pledged ourselves to serve and help others and to put service ahead of our own self-interest, be strengthened by our regular Rotary fellowship. May we seek to be a friend to both our fellow Rotarians and to all that we meet who are in need. May our present fundraising effort to further these ends be marked with joy and gratitude as we seek to help those in need, locally, nationally, and throughout the world. May our club always shine out as a caring and sharing group, even as we've had to learn to operate in different and sometimes challenging circumstances. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, John. And Ingrid, if you're with us, can you bring up the flag, please?
Yes, sorry, just a second.
No hurry. Thank you. And if you will, join me with our pledge to allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America,
Republic,
to the
republic to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I have been advised that Chris and AJ Kerley, who's helping with this, have sent out the packet instructions and the information concerning the soccer tournament. The ad sales are due to Ken Ferguson by Friday, March the 26th. And of course, the date of the tournament is May 1st and 2nd. We will be, during the tournament, even though it'll be reduced in size according to prior years, we will be following the COVID-19 safety protocols. And again, even though it's going to be at a reduced scale, we still believe we have the opportunity to help deserving students with college expenses. And so we will move forward. And for everyone who's involved in this, let me thank you in advance for your efforts to that end. Are there any other announcements at this point?
Yes, President Lou, I just want to remind the entire club, some of you have taken advantage of, some of you have not. We are matching points again for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll shut it off after Valentine's Day. So I've emailed each one of you that is close to attaining a Paul Harris Fellow or awarding another one. So get back to me if you're interested this year. Thanks.
Okay, thanks for that, Bill. And today our program is referred to as Member Stories, and it's hosted by Ingrid. Ingrid, you have the floor.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, my camera is not working, so I'm giving you a picture of me to look at. So I've really enjoyed these, and I know that many of our members have. It's been a great way to get to know each other just a little bit more. You learn little things that you may not have known if we didn't have these member career share stories. And I didn't give the folks who are sharing today, I didn't give you an order, and I decided we're going to go alphabetical by your first name. So the order is going to be AJ Kerley, Alan Barnhart, Josh McKinney, Lindsay Keisler, and our president, Lou Wetmore, is going to also share with us today. So we're going to get started with AJ. So AJ, you have the screen.
Oh, I don't know if going first is a good thing or a bad thing, but and my internet just said I was unstable, which may mean many different things, but but here we go. So where my story starts, I did grow up in Catawba County and graduated from Bunker Hill High, 1995. I was able to go attend Appalachian State University, where I graduated with 2 degrees, one in English and one in computer information technology. Wasn't sure where that was going to take me, but initially after graduation, it took me to Virginia Beach, where I was a territory manager for a computer organization that had both hardware and software products that I was able to market for them. Stayed there for a couple years, and actually came back to Catawba County in 2002 due to a medical diagnosis of cancer for my sister. So I was able to come home, basically a redirection of my path, to help out with her and her needs. When I came home, I had the opportunity to work for an optometrist location in Hickory, and he actually had 2 locations, and became their billing insurance person, and stayed in that career, stayed in that part of healthcare through optometry, and then went to outpatient physical therapy organization in Statesville. During the time where I was making that transition, I had met someone that I am now married to that it was a Statesville native. And I am still in Statesville. I still live in Statesville with our daughter, who is will be 3 in May. You've seen her some during Zoom calls where she acts as my marketing assistant, so to speak. She likes to be a part of calls. So career path, started with healthcare in 2002, stayed on the business side, the insurance side. And in 2013, I received a call from a home care organization that was interested in me coming on board with them as their business development, as well as working with their families that they were taking care of. So I started that journey and found that my niche was being an advocate for seniors and their families, connecting resources to those who needed it the most from my perspective. So I started that journey, saw a whole new side of healthcare from the home care side, and just really saw the needs of families from like I said, a different perspective from the inside versus what people are telling me from their experiences prior to entering home care. With home care, that also gave me an opportunity to do a lot of networking. Part of my territory was the Unifor area, Catawba County and surrounding counties, as well as Charlotte and Iredell County and things like that. But I really got to come back and see some people in this area in Catawba County that I had not seen in a while, reconnected with people from high school, as well as some professional connections. And that led me to connect with Pace at Home while still working at my home care at that home care organization, creating a partnership between the two, which we still have. And then received a call from one of the founding members from Carolina Caring that there was a position open in 2016 with Pace at Home, which I'd always said if there was an opportunity, I would love to work there. So with my connections and networking, I talked to them. The opportunity was awesome. And as you know, I am still with Pace at Home almost 5 years later. As of March, it'll be 5 years, still being an advocate for seniors, still being an advocate for our participants as I work not only to educate the community, which has been interesting during the last year with the pandemic, but also working with our current partnerships and acquiring new partnerships that help us care for our individuals. So seniors is where it's at for me. I love working with them. There are a lot of wisdom there, and I'm learning a lot. Pace does very well at being involved and engaged in growth with their team and team members that want to grow. So I'm doing a lot of leadership things with them over the past 5 years. I'm in Leadership Catawba right now to continue to help me grow and learn as much as I can, because as a leader, we never stop learning, I believe. So, and I think it has helped me make even more connections in the community to better serve the families that we're taking care of as well. So I think that's me in a nutshell. There's not a lot of, craziness, I would say. I've only lived in 2 states, which can be interesting in itself. There is a huge difference even between Virginia Beach and the area I'm in now. So yeah, excited to be a part of this Rotary Club. I got a lot of people before I became a member of the Rotary Club that were like, you need to join, you need to join. So I had 2 Rotary Clubs that actually were vying for my membership when I actually decided to join this Rotary Club, which I'm very proud of this Rotary Club and the things that we do over the past few years that I have been a part of it especially. So just glad to be a part of this group and continue to see what we all continue to do together as our hearts are, as John Leach said in his prayer, our hearts are to serve the community. And I think we're doing that very well as a group. So that's it for me. If you have any questions, I'm always here to answer those about PACE and myself and my career path.
Well, AJ, we're glad you chose us also. Thank you so much for sharing. And
you're welcome.
Yeah, appreciate it. And up next, we've got Alan Barnhart to share with us.
So I'm not quite as on task as AJ is, so I actually decided I was going to read what I had so that I could stay within my time parameters as best as possible. So here goes. I'll just read some of this history. I'm a member of the 3rd Barnhart generation in Charlotte, but our family moved to the U.S. from Germany around the 1750s. Our original name was Bernhardt, which makes Alex Bernhardt my 8th cousin. My grandfather and father were very active in the Charlotte community. I watched them manage the family business and saw the work ethics they lived. Work hard and treat people fairly. I think I also absorbed a lot from my mother in the way she loved nature and working in the yard. I had a great love for the outdoors, and Boy Scouting was a favorite activity. My Scoutmaster, Dick Carter, taught me a lot about leadership and living the Scout laws. Some important milestones as a youth included my first camping trip to Linville Gorge at the age of 11, being introduced to rock climbing when I was 14, and Outward Bound School in Colorado at 16. An interest in architecture led me to Clemson University, where I found I was not as interested in architecture as much as I was the girl who occupied the desk across from me. That and the Clemson Outing Club captured most of my interest. I became the president of the outing club, which grew from 1 outing every other week to 2 outings each weekend. Membership also grew from about 30 to over 200 members. Oh, the girl sitting at the desk, she later became my wife. Upon graduation from Clemson in 1975, I didn't have plans beyond spending the summer as a rock climbing instructor. A friend of the family suggested I open an outdoor store. I had been designing and sewing outdoor gear for several years and loved the outdoors. So that sounded like a fine idea, and I began writing letters to companies like the North Face, Kelty, Vest, and other outdoor suppliers. I quickly learned that the market was much more territorial then, and my competitor in Charlotte had the best brands locked down. Over the next 24 years, Allenby Outfitting for the Outdoors became a place to find the best equipment and advice. I love talking to customers about their trips and helping them make gear choices that would make their trips more fun. As the internet started becoming more prevalent in our lives, I had a feeling that internet catalog sales might be a growing thing. Not interested in jumping into an internet business, I decided it was time to exit the retail scene. After closing Allenby, I sought an occupation that wouldn't consume my whole life. I submitted an application to become the executive director of Carolina Raptor Center. Their mission is to rehabilitate injured birds of prey, and they were doing a pretty good job healing birds and returning them to the wild. As the new executive director, I helped them find new friends and take on a greater role in the science community. We grew the budget by approximately $100,000 each year, and at the end of my tenure had hired the first veterinarian. The center is now one of the largest raptor rehabilitation programs in the US. After 10 years, I was ready for another challenge. About that time, Catawba Science Center was seeking a new executive director. The timing was right for me, and since I have extended family in Charlotte, being close was a plus. I was accepted for that position and have enjoyed the last decade in Hickory. It was a great part of being such an important part of the community and seeing our endowment grow to over $4 million. In 1985, a friend asked me if I was interested in joining Rotary. My father was a member. I could see that he lived the motto, service above self, but we rarely talked about it. I expressed interest and was inducted into the Charlotte Club, where I served on a variety of committees and as the club secretary. But more importantly, I gained a number of friends. I've always enjoyed working with others to improve our community, and the Rotary Club of Lake Hickory is a special group for me. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my family. My parents, now in their 90s, have always been supportive of me and my brothers. We get together as often as possible. My wife of 45 years gave up a career in the building construction industry to raise our 3 lovely daughters and allow me to pursue my business and other adventures. And I'm proud of my daughters who are successful in their careers as a civil engineer, medical doctor, and captain in the U.S. Army. They have married well and allow me to play with their children. In closing this presentation, I will share that I received important advice stating that you must plan for retirement. So I decided I wanted to focus on 3 areas: my family, parents, wife and children, and grandchildren, my artistic side, and my love for the outdoors. I must say I've enjoyed playing with my 5 grandchildren. I boast of being the only grandparent who can get on the floor and play with the children and then get back up. I've been able to explore my artistic side through woodworking. Carol Robinson introduced me to the art of making Windsor furniture. I made 6 years, but turning wood bowls is a little quicker. I'm always trying to figure out what the bowl wants to be. The basement of my Hickory home is full of woodworking tools and wood that keep me very busy. And I still try to get outdoors. This past summer, I traveled to the state of Washington for 3 weeks of hiking and a roped climb of Forbidden Peak. So I'm trying to maintain a graceful life and living by Peter Pan's theme. I believe it was Wendy that said, never grow up.
Thank you, Alan. I like that theme. Never grow up. I think we all can relate to that somewhat. So thank you so much for sharing. And
wait a minute. Alan, that's a good looking picture on the wall behind you there.
Oh yeah, it reminds me of cross-country skiing. Oh, who painted that?
I don't know. Could looks familiar.
I think it says something like Ernie on it. That's a painting, one of Ernie's paintings. I love it, Ernie.
Lovely backdrop, Ernie. Thank you for giving us all something else to look at besides Alan.
Yeah, right.
Well, thanks, Alan. And I did want to mention also that Alan and AJ share our secretarial duties right now. So, and all of the presentations today are actually coming from board members. So thank you, Alan. Really enjoyed hearing about your journey as well. So next up, we have Josh McKinney, who has a pretty different experience from Alan, I think.
I do, but I'm still trying to not grow up. So, yeah, so I was born and raised in Lenoir, so effectively Hickory, Catawba County. Obviously, it's Caldwell County, but if you wanted to do anything, you came to Catawba County or Hickory. So, I guess a transplant or a greater Hickory area kid. I went to Appalachian State. Let's see, I had undergrad. I started, the general classes, decided I wanted to be a CEO, which obviously is a very broad career choice. So I walked in the College of Business and enrolled there. They basically said, you can't just say you want to be a CEO, you need to pick a path. So as I started taking the various business classes, I found that finance became an interest. Actually, one of my professors basically said, hey, look, you kind of got this finance thing. It seems to click in your head. Maybe you should consider that as your major. I shrugged my shoulders and said, okay, sounds good. So I started the finance path. I took a commercial bank management class with a guy that some people may be familiar with, Harry Davis. He was the kind of the banking professor at App State. He was also the chief economist for the North Carolina Bankers Association for years, and just a brilliant guy. So really enjoyed his class. He always wore really cool suits and ties. So obviously, I thought, hey, that's kind of cool. And I'll never forget, he actually told a story of buying a Mercedes on a credit card. So, you think, okay, a banker's telling you to buy a car with a credit card. Well, this was before there was a limit on points. So he basically bought the car with a credit card, got, some ungodly amount of points, and then just refinanced it through a traditional loan. So I thought, okay, I got to learn how to do that. So again, took the banking path, really enjoyed my classes there. So I finished my undergrad in 4 years. My friends decided they were going to take much longer for their undergrad. So I thought, I don't want to leave yet. So I stayed on and got my MBA from Appalachian State. And so at the tail end of the MBA program, BB&T Bank came up for interviews for what they call the Leadership Development Program. So I started asking questions, and I found out basically that was another 6 months of a college type program, except you actually get paid this time. I thought, okay, sounds cool. I want to go into banking. And so side story, so I finished my MBA in August. The program didn't start until January, so I had some time in there. My brother, who is a plumbing contractor, had his own business. I had helped him through high school, summers in college. He said, hey, just come work with me full time for 4 or 5 months. So little funny story, he always loved to tell customers of his that, his helper has an MBA. So, plumber's helper with an MBA. So anyway, started in January with BB&T, went through their leadership development program, which again was a 6-month sort of college environment where you learn the ropes, learn the technicalities of commercial lending. So enjoyed that, and they place you. You kind of pick the map of BB&T, and they place you at a commercial center where you're needed. So you can give them suggestions, but it's up to them where they want to place you. So I always wanted to live at the beach, so I put a couple of the coastal regions down as my choice. And on placement day, I was dragged into a room, and they said, okay, they had an atlas. So she opens the atlas up and says, you probably never heard of this, but you're going to a place called Sneed's Ferry. So they placed me there. I covered Topsail Island, the south part of Jacksonville, North Carolina, and Wilmington for, I guess I was there 2 years. It was the very start of the Great Recession, the real estate market driven recession. They'd put me there hoping to take advantage of the real estate market. So I called on every business, surf shops, realtors, seafood restaurants. I actually had a loan on a shrimp boat that started from new construction, from literally a board that was laying on the ground. They had a big ceremony and it turned into a shrimp boat. So kind of, again, just out beating the bushes, calling on pretty much everybody that I could find. They kind of got the vibe that, okay, look, we don't need you right now. We love you. We'll call you when we do. So I was ready for something different, and also ready to get back home at the time. So I kind of raised my hand and said, I'd like to move. So they moved me to Hickory. A lot of folks on the call may know Ron Lindler, but I had the pleasure of being on Ron's team for 7, almost 8 years, kind of following, dragging on his coattails for years, just trying to soak up all the, community banking knowledge that he had, and get to know folks and kind of see how I like to do banking. So, I guess 5 years ago now, he was retiring, and I was looking for something a little bit different in terms of the style of banking and a smaller bank. And so a coworker of mine had come to People's Bank And so, I made the decision that I wanted to do something different. So I called and called and called and kind of bugged him and Lance, our CEO, until I was fortunate to land here at People's Bank. Like I said, I've been here 5 years, doing commercial the whole time. Really enjoy it. You find yourself sometimes covered up in PPP, SBA loans, but in general, it's fun to get out in the community and see all the different types of businesses that are here. A lot of my coworkers, one of them specifically loves the phrase, "It's awesome to see how many ways there is to make a nickel," and that's true. I'll never forget, going on a day of going out on calls, and I was in a crematorium one time, and we're doing the guy's showing us it's a funeral area, and he takes us back, and the I guess you'd call it the cremation machine was running, and I'm like, okay, is that so? You guys are practicing? And no, he pulls the chain. He opens the crematorium. So again, it's never a dull moment. And so I'm I guess personally married, 2 kids, and again, just trying not to grow up.
Thank you, Josh. And, if Dwayne Alexander was on the call, to him, that's an everyday occurrence.
Right.
A crematorium door. Well, thank you. Also, and Josh is, of course, all of you know, our treasurer. And so we're so fortunate also to have him on our board and also as our treasurer. And moving right along to another, are we millennials? I'm not really sure. We're kind of on the cusp.
Millennials. I think we're still millennials of crowd.
So moving from one millennial to another here, everyone knows Lindsay. And so Lindsay, please share with us your career path story.
Well, thank you, Ingrid. I appreciate you asking me to share. It is such a privilege to share the screen with all of you. And my story has a lot to do with legacy leaders of our community. I certainly stand on the shoulders of individuals that have come along behind me or before me, and including individuals in my family. And really, when I think of my choice in career path, which it kind of found me, I didn't really find it. It kind of found me. I guess no one thinks as a little girl, they think they want to grow up as a Chamber of Commerce president. You don't necessarily think about that. But I will say, being born and raised in this community, I come from a long line of community servants. So from elected officials to the first fire chief in the city of Conover to entrepreneurs, and really just community servants, serial volunteers, if you will. And so the service in community just runs through my veins. However, I always knew that. I always knew I wanted to go away, come back, and serve my community in some way. I just didn't know exactly that it would be following this exact profession. But I want to tell you a couple of stories. Passion is the result of action, not the cause of it. I think as we're growing up and trying to determine our future, we think to ourselves, what's our purpose on this earth? What's our passion? What are we supposed to do? What's our calling in life? And I really feel that you learn, or you are passionate about things that you do, experiences that you have, experiences that form your inner being and your motivations. And so a couple of those formative stories for me, I have an entrepreneurial flame. I've always had a desire to make something, create something of my own, or foster and grow something. That's just always been innate within me. And it started as about an 8-year-old in front of my house behind a lemonade stand, I'll say. And so that's where my entrepreneurial flame was lit. And it continued on to the present day. The other story was, I'm a Gold Award Girl Scout, so which is the equivalent of an Eagle Scout in terms of Boy Scouts of America. And as a part of that project, we had some therapy ponies that we kept, and we took them to nursing homes and things like that. But in order to keep these ponies, I had to change an ordinance in the city of Conover. So as a 16-year-old, I am presenting before city council, asking them to amend an ordinance that would allow livestock within the city limits. This is a true story. So they passed it, and to this day, the ordinance still stands in the city. That moment, you might think, okay, what about that? But at that moment, I realized that I could impact change in my community. Also, it was at that moment that I realized that women could lead and women could impact change in a community. And so, like Josh, I went away. I actually went to UNC Charlotte. So go Niners. I received a degree in marketing. I'm always the type that I constantly want to learn. I have adopted a growth mindset from a young age. So I did multiple internships during my tenure. One being the Greater Hickory Kia Classic at Rock Barn. I was their intern for 2 years. And then I did an internship with NASCAR. So really sports marketing was kind of my first love. But really what I loved behind sports marketing was the business of sports. And so I've just had this passion of business and entrepreneurship. All that is this common theme in my story. So again, my first key point is doing is the key. Realizing your passion will be uncovered by action. So along that internship, I met a gentleman by the name of Danny Hearn, which is no stranger to this group. Danny to this day is my biggest cheerleader, and I would be his biggest cheerleader as well. Danny saw that young intern and said, and just remembered me, I think, by the impact that I made in my role. And so I was coming out of UNC Charlotte, and again, my heart's desire was always to serve my community and make it better. And my dad actually heard through the grapevine that the Chamber of Commerce was looking for a membership salesperson. So I was like, what is a Chamber of Commerce, right? Why would I want to do that? But had a conversation with Danny, and I was hooked, line and sinker. If you call it, drink the Kool-Aid, if you will. And then 1 or 2 years into it, having the opportunity to sit across from entrepreneurs all day and hear their story and their background and their passion and what makes them tick, and how I can connect them to the resources to make their dreams and their visions become reality. I was completely enamored. So being fulfilled, not only that entrepreneurial flame was fulfilled by being across the table from entrepreneurs every day. The other part, having a mentor, and Danny Hearn was certainly mine. One year, this was about 4 years in, he brought me in his office and he said, Lindsay, are you happy with what you're doing? And I told him, I said, I love what I do. I said, now, career potential wise, I'd love to be able to advance at the chamber. And at that point, he literally asked me, we had a senior vice president position open at the time. I want you to serve in this role. Keep in mind, I was working alongside of other individuals that are twice my age, twice my tenure. But he saw something in me. And so my next key point that I just want to stress to everybody is call out the potential in others that they may or may not see in themselves. Danny was that person for me that said, Lindsay, you could leave right now and run any chamber across our Carolinas or across the country. But he wanted to grow and develop me. And so I encourage us all to glean from that example. And then finally, 2017 was when, or 2016, Danny retired. I had no desire to, at that point, to step into his role or apply to his role. I was 8 months pregnant with my second son, and from a work-life balance, it just wasn't possible. However, the executive committee was relentless. And after doing the job for 6 months as interim, they finally convinced me to apply. And I'll say my next point is you are made for hard things, and just say yes. So that became my mantra for over the next several years of, Ingrid asking me to share some of, nuggets from my journey. Just say yes. If someone asking me to be the board president of a 2-state association, just say yes. Being the first female president of the Chamber of Catawba County, just say yes. Even if you're 8 months pregnant, big as a barn, accepting the role in front of 1,000 people from our business community. Just say yes. You were definitely made for hard things. And then finally, my last point is lead well by serving well. So my people on this call may remember or know personally Stein Eisenhower. Stein is actually my great uncle. And what a privilege it is to know him and love him, and also to follow in his footsteps in community leadership. If I could, draw a picture of someone that led well by serving well, it would be of Stein Eisenhower. Walt Disney stated to do something really great is to think beyond your lifetime. And then also, that old proverb that says, plant trees whose shade you may never sit beneath. And that really is what drives me. My love for community, my love for business, but also my love for serving well and making this place better than I found it. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. You're so inspirational to all of us. So thank you for sharing your story and all those wonderful quotes. It gives us all something to uplift our days today as well. And we're going to finish our member career stories today with none other than our very own Rotarian president, Lou Wetmore.
Thank you, Ingrid. I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, the third child of 5 of Stanley and Clara Wetmore. Unfortunately, Stanley Wetmore died in 1945 from complications of pneumonia. A little while later, my mother married a returning veteran from World War II named Jimmy Street, and he adopted all of the 5 Wetmore children. So therefore, I spent my early years and through my teen years as Lewis Street rather than Lewis Wetmore. They then had 3 more, so we were raised in a family of 8 children. Unfortunately, Jimmy Street was an alcoholic, and he suffered terribly from things that he saw in World War II, and so our home life was not as tranquil as we would have liked. But then again, that's another story. When my older brother and I became adults, we realized that we were the last living members of the Wetmore side of the family. And so we elected to change our name back to Wetmore with, of course, the full blessing of my stepfather. I graduated from Memphis State University and I took a job at Ford Motor Company, which was a dream job for me, and enjoyed it immensely. I worked there several years until my father-in-law, who owned a nursery and landscape business, convinced me to come to work for him. That was not the best move I ever made in my life. In fact, it was a terrible move, to tell you the truth. But unfortunately, my wife and her relations with her parents was deteriorating rapidly, and therefore my relationship with my boss was deteriorating rapidly. So we decided maybe what we ought to do is get out of town for a while. So I went looking for a job, and a company called Boise Cascade offered me a job as a corrugated box salesman. At that time, I thought salesmen wore plaid coats and carried around a vacuum cleaner, and I wasn't really particularly interested in that, but Charlotte seemed like a pretty nice place to live, and the money was okay. So we moved to Charlotte and went to work for Boise Cascade. I found out that I was calling on professional buyers, and it was completely different from having to haul a vacuum cleaner around. After several years, the company made me a sales manager, and they moved me to Hickory. Now, we loved Charlotte, but moving to Hickory was like dying and going to heaven. And that worked out great. I was sales manager for several years, had a super job. I loved it. We were well entrenched in the community with our churches and schools, and life was good. However, my boss and another fellow decided to leave Boise Cascade and start a company in competition with them. They invited me to join them, and I did not want to do that for two reasons. One is I liked the job I had, and two, I thought if my boss left, I might have a shot at his job. Well, while they were trying to put their organization together, I got the call to interview for a job as the general manager in Torrance, California for Boise Cascade. And while I was not offered that job, it made me realize that if you work for a large company, you're going to have to live where they want you to live. And we certainly did not want to leave Hickory. So when I got back, I asked the two fellows if that invitation was still open to join them. They said it was. And so we started Triad Packaging in 1976. Over the years, I bought the other two out and became the sole owner. And over the years, expanded the company to where we had 4 box plants. We had one in Dalton, Georgia, one in Conover, one in Durham, and one in Orlando, Florida. And by then I had become a pilot and had a twin-engine airplane that I used to go between the plants. One night, in the middle of the night, I was coming back from Dalton, Georgia on a very cloudy, cold January evening. And fortunately, even though I was in clouds, the ride was smooth and I had the plane on autopilot. And I was thinking, I realized my sons had no interest in the business. So I'm kind of pondering what's my next move. And about that time, the right engine stumbled and woke me out of my tranquil thought. And I started looking around trying to figure out why in the world was that engine running rough, realizing being dead over the middle of the mountains, if I crashed, they wouldn't never find the plane, much less me. So finally, I turned my wing light on and found out I was picking up ice. I immediately turned on all of my anti-ice equipment. And then a second later, all hell broke loose. And what it was, I finally figured out, the ice was slinging off the propellers and hitting the side of the airplane. And you can't imagine the racket that made. But anyway, everything turned out. I got through the evening and landed at Hickory fine with no problem. Interestingly enough, the next day, a company broker called me and said he had a client who had been in the box business in South Carolina. He sold his business and he was looking to buy another business, but he had to do something out of the state of South Carolina. So he had to buy a box plant in either Georgia or Florida. And he wanted to know if I might be interested in selling my Dalton plant. And I said, I think maybe I can help you out on that. And so I started selling the plants. And in 2008, sold the last one. By then, I had become a court mediator, realizing I was getting ready to sell out everything and needing something to do in retirement. And then when I sold the last plant, I had to leave my building. I had rented the building to the people who bought the company. And so I called Phil Clark, some of y'all might remember him, to see if he would rent me an office in his downtown building. And he said that he knew that I had been handling portfolios for friends and neighbors and relatives. And he said, why don't you just come down here and join us and get certified to do this? And he said, you can do the same thing you've been doing, just do more of it, get paid for it. And I thought, well, that sounds like a pretty good thing. So I did. And so now I'm working and have been for the last 12 years as a wealth advisor. And I probably spend about 80% of my time on that and about 20% on mediation. It has certainly been interesting to see how it's all changed with the pandemic, but there are some blessings that sometimes are not obvious. But one of the good things about holding mediations and even client reviews via Zoom is I don't have to leave my office. And that has been somewhat of a convenience, even though I would like to get back to face-to-face meetings. That's where the real meat is. And that's my story.
Thank you, Lou. Wow. I was entranced with the story about you flying. Now I understand why you're so passionate about the veterans flights and how much that must mean to you. So thank you for sharing. And actually, I'm just going to turn it back over to you to close the meeting.
Okay, well, if there's no other announcements at this point,
I have one.
go ahead.
You remember, of course, and I appreciate Alan sending out a reminder about everybody, but we have the nonprofit organization project going on right now, and we need everybody that would like to sponsor a nonprofit for a possible grant. And so that those grants applications are due to me on February the 16th, which is actually 2 weeks from tomorrow. So there's plenty of time, but I do need to get those to me and postmarked by February the 16th, or if you don't send them, and if you'd like to pick them up from your executive directors of the organization or whomever you're working with on the organizations, you can pick up those. Give me a call and we'll find out a way that I can meet you somewhere and pick up those applications. Either way would be fine. The second thing is I need 5 more people to serve on the selection committee, and I'll be sending out information further on that by email. So be thinking about that. If you've served in the past, we'd love to have you again, or if we have some new ones would be interested in that. Just remember, you can't have a direct relationship with any of the organizations that might be sending in an application. But I do need 5 more members. We have 2 that have agreed, Charlie Amons and Jeff Mackey, and I appreciate those already saying they would volunteer. So thank you. I look forward to getting those applications in.
Coy, Dan Shoveling here. In the quote, a famous philosopher, when you're asked to serve, you need to serve. So if put me down on your list.
Okay.
Lindsay has motivated me.
Okay. So you served last year, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I thought you did. Yep, I remember. I appreciate you. Did a great job, and I appreciate and be glad you have you on the team.
All right, glad to do it. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Coy. As a reminder, next week's meeting, we will not be holding a meeting on Tuesday, but we'll be joining the Thursday Club on the 11th. They'll be celebrating their 100th anniversary, and they have several Rotary dignitaries that will join them, so it promises to be a very interesting program. The program for our meeting on February the 16th will be a presentation by an FBI agent, Robert Wells, presented by fellow Rotarian Nancy Meeks. The invitation will be by Dan Chabaldini. And that is it for this meeting today. And if you will, please join me for the 4-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth?
Is it
fair to all concerned? Will it bring goodwill in friendships? Will it be all concerned?
All concerned.
Thank all of you for joining us today. I hope the rest of your day is great and the rest of your week, and we'll see you in 2 weeks, or next Thursday anyway. Thanks a million.
Hey, Coy. Coy,
Yeah.
you can add me to the list, Maurice.
What?
You can add me to your list. I served on it last year.
Yeah.